With the cancellation of Hyenas, the Creative Assembly, the creators of Total War, have been targeted for potentially massive layoffs by their parent company of Sega. To talk about how this happened, as well as the implications for games moving forward, I'm joined today by Great Book of Grudges.
Hello, everyone. Drama time, I guess.
Yeah, I got a message from you at 5 o'clock this morning, which thankfully I was already awake for the random circumstance, and it has been something to wake up to say the least.
Yeah, I'm not too sure how well people are caught up, but obviously Hyenas is now dead in the water. Mm-hmm. Creative Assembly have released a statement now regarding that, mm-hmm. where... Yeah, I mean, do you want to read it? Shall I?
Well, I mean, just to tell people, this is not the Creative Assembly canceling Hyenas. This is their parent company, Sega Sammy, canceling it out from underneath them. They did not get a say in this.
Yeah, so there have been rumors that Sega had been bleeding cash for a while, though.
Oh, goodness. The number, $95 million projected loss this year. Which is nuts. Apparently, the entire operating budget of the Creative Assembly is roughly 120 million. So almost all of the Creative Assembly's what they're doing just isn't enough to cover the bills anymore. Yeah,
and now they've decided to strike at CA. Keep in mind that they've been striking at other companies too. They did this to Relic. They did this to a few others, and this is more close to home for all of us, right?
Yeah,
because this is our home turf.
Yeah, so they're specifically saying that it's a reevaluation of what's happening with them right now, and they're saying their entire European position is just not looking good. And Relic Entertainment specifically released Company of Heroes 3 at the beginning of the year, and they were reduced from 300 people to 150. I mean, they cut them in half. So the expected cuts at the Creative Assembly are also deep, which is not in a good position for anybody that works there.
Yeah. It's something important to know. I know a lot of you guys, because I covered this earlier this morning. I know you guys weren't keen on Hyenas, but keep in mind that when damage is done, it hits everyone. Yeah. I didn't like Hyenas. I know a lot of you didn't like Hyenas, but this is going to affect us all. A few unannounced titles have also been hit, and they've been shelved. God knows what's going to happen to the rest of our stuff, right? Mm-hmm. CA did put out the statement right now. Do you want to read it? Because I'm a little bit jumpy and I get stuttery.
No, you're fine. I'll be happy to read it. It's definitely one that it's a statement. I'll say that. It's definitely a statement, and it reads like a corporate statement, which is unfortunate, but that's what we get. And we'll talk about that in a minute. You're like, everyone's affected at the company. Are they? Or are just the people that are working class individuals doing their best going to be affected? Which is unfortunately what this reads like. This is from the CEO, the official CEO of Creative Assembly posted it and said it's a dark day inside the company and they're having to do all this, obviously. We made the incredibly difficult decision to begin a redundancy consultation process in some areas of our UK operations alongside ending development of Hyenas. This may unfortunately result in job losses. We fully understand this has a significant impact on our people, whether they are directly affected or not, which we are truly sorry for. We have always aimed to operate as a people-first studio that is foundational to our values and culture. While we must go through this incredibly difficult process, we will prioritize supporting our people at every step. For those whose jobs are at risk, we will work to reallocate them into our other available roles within CA whenever possible, and ultimately minimize any job losses. Our commitment to other projects and players has not changed. We will deliver more incredible experiences to our players all over the world for decades to come, which is, while this is a difficult moment across CA, we look forward to sharing more about our plans in the future.
Yeah.
And they made sure to put a link to an official email saying, hey, if you work at another gaming company, reach out to us. We have people that are suddenly available to hire.
Yeah, which makes me think they're not trying to minimize job losses too much inside of CA. One thing that CA is very famous for is half-truths. So this does kind of worry me because prior to the statement going out, for a few hours already, there have been people on LinkedIn, on loads of different locations, saying, hey, I've lost my job if anyone knows anything. And yeah, this is not a great situation because, well, it's not great when everyone loses, when anyone loses their job. The case is also, right now, the UK is fucked economically. Mm-hmm. This is not a good situation.
Yeah, especially to be letting people go and forcing them into they're going to be much harder to find a job than they would have been a year ago. This is a deteriorating situation across the gaming industry right now as it heads into what appears to be a global recession, unfortunately.
Yeah.
We've said for a long time, I think both of us have, that it's like, man, why is CA 900 employees? It's always been a bit odd to everyone that covers their stuff that there's so many extra people sort of attached to the company. I mean, the founding of the new CA North studio, which I can only assume has now been nixed. It's going to be interesting to see what this comes out looking like. It's funny that the reason we're talking now is we had just talked last week in an interview, and the thing we said as soon as it ended, we were just chatting after the interview was over, and we were talking about how it feels like something weird is going on. We just didn't know what it was. That felt like, why are these like 3 flops in a row? That almost feels intentional. It's either purposefully intentional or incredibly dumb. Either way, the results are the same, which is that the Creative Assembly is now positioned for a buyout, and Sega Sammy itself is incredibly vulnerable and is likely to be bought out.
Yeah, and we've all been hearing those rumors about Microsoft. It's not just like new rumors. These have been going on for months and months now.
And officially confirmed by Microsoft. I mean, there's internal emails in their court documents happening out in California where they said they actually considered buying them and then just didn't because they had the option to buy Bethesda instead. And Bethesda costs like twice as much. So they can always go back up and scoop out Sega later, which, oof.
And they've got the capital coming in now because Starfield has been selling stupidly well.
And Activision Blizzard deal has largely been cleared, So, I mean, they're clearly, they want to expand that gaming division badly. And the Creative Assembly has a history of working with Activision. That's not new. I mean, a lot of their earlier games are published under them. Yeah.
There's the case, too, that now that the deal's gone through and everything comes in, Blizzard's due for some cash coming in.
So they got Chris Metzen back.
Not only that, but like there are 2 leaks that have come out, which might not be true, but like there is apparently an expansion coming out for WoW soon, which kind of makes sense because Dragonflight is kind of wrapping up. There's also this leak that's been going out about a Classic Plus expansion. That's going to make a stupid amount of money, especially if the leak is true where Metzen is leading that.
I would love Classic Plus. Oh my goodness, I would play that. Like if they reset back to vanilla and then like a different story. Oh my god, I would love that.
I'll send you the leak later. You might actually really like it.
But I mean, this is not, I mean, that's happy there, but it's not happy here. I mean, this affects us as well because unfortunately, I mean, we all directly work with them in an ancillary capacity. I mean, both of our channels are based on Creative Assembly, so any kind of serious hiccups like this affect us as well. But so it's not just Hyenas being canceled, though. There's at least 4 unannounced projects that have been canceled as well. So do you want to play the I heard this rumor of a game? And
the role-play game, yes.
So let's play this game really quick. What we think is coming down the pipe or have heard rumors of and what we think has been axed. Warhammer 40K.
I don't think it's been axed.
Oh yeah, no way. I mean, that's too big.
Way
of a
too much money.
That's one of those that, I mean, that's the next 5 years for the studio. Like that's a hugely negotiated deal, not axed.
Yeah.
Empire 2.
If it happens, probably axed.
Ooh, axed.
Yeah. I mean, if you give me 2 options, Empire 2 or Medieval 3, I'm going to go for Medieval 3.
You're right. I mean, with the limited amount of resources, that's the kind of decisions they're having to make right now. I was too glib. I don't know, man. Like, it's just this whole situation is so screwed. Like, that's the honest truth of it. It's like, the people that are responsible for making the decisions, the CEOs and the C-suites, are not going to be fired. It's the average person that's working on the art or the programmer that was, busting their butt to make the animations, and it just sucks.
Yeah.
I wonder if they're going to try and jettison entire studios. Like, Pharaoh is not performing to expectations. Is CA Sophia going to try and be sold off again?
Yeah. This is something that I stated a while back this morning. A lot of people were going, well, because the devs. It's like, no, the devs were doing their job.
Yeah.
The devs were doing their job. They were doing what their job description said they were doing. The one that needs to be on the fire is the executive making the stupid dog shit situations which have led to this, which are making people lose their income.
Yeah, there was a comment from Balint earlier today, who's a former CA employee, who said, they've been developing Hyenas for 6 years on and off, and
nine. He said 2016 in his tweet.
Oh. I mean, it's basically what after Alien Isolation is when they would have started development because they're the console division. That's what they do. But I mean, he said every step along the way, people were like, hey, this isn't gelling. This isn't working. But, you know, if your leadership isn't listening to you, that's it. I mean, there's nothing else you can do.
Yeah. It's really, really worrying how this is what, like, I've been told this is industry standard, which really pissed me off because this shouldn't be an industry standard. Apparently, the original statement from Sega Sammy came out at the same time that CA staff was being told.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, that's pretty standard, unfortunately.
That's disgusting, man. That's blindsiding so many people.
Well, it's the same reason they escort people off the property by security guard the moment they're fired. You know, it doesn't give people a chance to react. It doesn't give people a chance to start looking for other jobs. It doesn't theoretically lessen any work going on inside the company. It's a crappy corporate CEO move. And unfortunately, this entire thing reeks of crappy corporate CEO moves to me. I spoke to you about this briefly, but if you are aware of Disney, the company Disney, they pulled Willow, the entire streaming series of Willow, off of their Disney Plus streaming network after only 3 months because they felt that it was worth more to claim it as a loss on their taxes than any theoretical projected income moving forward. And it feels like the same thing's happening with Hyenas here. I mean, basically, Sega Sammy's going to write all this off as loss, and so they can claim they didn't make any money this year and therefore don't have to pay as much taxes. So someone did the math and said, our theoretical profits and our theoretical tax break, and then that's what happened. And it's crap, and that's the unfortunate reality of these gaming studios working under large publishers that are public traded. You know, the green line has to go up.
The problem is that this is a thing which kind of worried me post COVID, actually, because during the COVID period, everyone was gaming, right?
Yeah,
there were a lot more people gaming. We profited a lot from it, like as content creators, because there were just more eyes on it. Now that everyone's going back to normal, less people are gaming, so less sales are going to happen. So you'd think that there would be an account for that, saying, hey, things are back to normal now. We're not going to be making this type of money anymore, or we might not get that close. You know?
I mean, that's unfortunately part of being publicly traded is there is no option for it to have less sales, right? There has to be an exploitation somewhere else. There has to be profit made somewhere else. I mean, I think that's why we started seeing increased prices for DLC. That's why we started seeing cosmetic skins for Pharaoh. It's like, I think that the current CEO of Creative Assembly knew that they were about to get hit with this and was already trying to spin this to benefit them in any way they could. And it was just too late.
Well, like hypothetically, say that you're the head of CA. How would you have done it differently?
Oh man, how far back in time do you want to go?
Say you've been at CA for a while, you've done the COVID wave, you know what's coming now. Clearly you need to think, right?
I don't know, man. I mean, it's like, it's easy to backseat drive stuff like that, but I think that a poor launch for Warhammer 3, coupled with too long delays between DLC, and then a couple lackluster Saga releases, and then the huge debt that became Hyenas. I understand that the console division has always sort of been there, they're the original part of CA. But except for Alien Isolation, that's really the only hit they've had in the last 10, 15 years. I mean, I mentioned Halo Wars 2, but like my wife played that and then like played it only a little bit. I mean, it's fine. Yeah. And it's just like, I think you just have to be realistic about what your studio is capable of producing. And it's not a game a year, right? Which is what they wanted to go to with the Saga titles. And it didn't happen. It didn't work, right? I mean, they were trying to pump them out as $60 games and it fell apart. I think that COVID really hit their production pipeline. We've heard that from a number of people, that working from home and the lack of the ability to communicate with each other, like it was basically making games in a vacuum and the pieces didn't come together correctly. So, bringing people back into the studio and getting that stuff working, but it just never gelled back together in a way. I don't know, man. It's just, I think their costs were too high. I mean, apparently their costs are too high. I mean, it says it right there. Their costs are too high. I'm reading a book right now called Blood, Sweat, and Pixels by Jason Schreier, by the way. If you ever get a chance to read this, fantastic. It's an inside look at the gaming industry. And it says the basic, and this was $2016, by the way. The basic math is $10,000 per person per month inside your company. So that's what costs that company to have that person there. So if we have a 900 person, company, that's what, $9 million a month? Did I do the math right on that? I don't have my calculator. I'm just going to cut that section up for myself. I'm going to pretend I didn't just fail at math.
No, it's 900,000.
I mean, that's the math of it. I mean, that's a heck of a lot of money per person to be sitting around. It's like, how many people of those are developers? How many are overhead? How many are marketing? How many are video? I mean, I know that I was interested in joining the content creation wing of Creative Assembly a number of years ago, and I found out there were 12 people already in there. I was like, what? Doing what?
Doing what? Yeah.
Exactly. It's like, what? Doing what? Like, how many of those are a manager who has 2 or 3 sub-managers and all that going together? I mean, it's just, yeah, I mean, so there's a similar situation to what I had to talk about people with the Unity. You follow the development with Unity last week, all the shenanigans with that. Like, their stock prices are going down, so they had to find a new way to monetize. And it hurt everything around it, not unlike what's happened here. But, it's that same sort of thing since a new CEO came in, or a new head of whatever came in about 2 years ago, who, by the way, both these people were previously working for EA.
Yeah, which speaks a lot.
Yeah, to what the priority is. I mean, they're not there to create art. They're not there to create games. They're there to make money. I mean, that is their actual position. And, everyone was like, man, why is Unity getting so big? Like, I think their employee count ballooned from 300 to like 2,000 in the course of 2 years. And everyone's like, why? Well, because it makes you more attractive for those buyouts. Yet again, it makes it look like, oh, we're a great company and we're so strong and, we're underperforming right now. But if you come in and trim us down a little bit, I mean, look at all we got to offer. And it just feels like, Sega Sammy and Creative Assembly are in that same position. I mean, like, by posting a statement like this, they're basically saying, hey, boys, look how tasty we look, right? We're great right here. Come in and purchase us and, make us your department. It's just, it's crappy CEO tactics, instead of just being slow and steady and making something at the beginning that you knew would work and you could keep people on with. They're basically playing games with people's lives and careers, all for the sake of a few extra $1 million in a CEO's pocket. Yeah.
Because those are the people who are actually just going, because when a company does well, and this is a big thing, like 99.9% of these companies don't have like a profit share and stuff like that. So none of these devs are getting anything.
Oh, they get a launch party.
Yeah. Fuck all.
Yeah.
Like, that's, wow, big whoop.
Now, I will give Creative Assembly one bit of credit. Like, I'm going to say this for them right here. Now, they say they are people-oriented. I have never heard about crunch being an issue at Creative Assembly. Have you?
I think crunch has been a thing. I think that crunch has been a thing.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's not so well known, though, that the studio is known for it in any capacity.
Yeah, that's true. Like, they're not CD Projekt Red.
Yeah,
but
they're not CD Projekt. They're not like Naughty Dog. They're not like a studio that's like constantly grinding people 60, 70 hours a week all the time. That's a pretty low bar.
Yeah, but I do believe that they do crunch, which explains the high turnover of staff too. Mm-hmm. Because it happens a lot, and they are underpaid. A lot of developers are underpaid.
Yes, I've heard that.
You just have to go on Glassdoor and you can see the average wage of the employees at Creative Assembly.
So the average employee wage for Creative Assembly, I think that's £20,000. It's like they're getting people fresh out of college. Like, there's long been a reputation of they are sort of the first stepping stone. You go in there, spend 2 or 3 years, you learn your skills, then you go to a company that's smaller that you can make more of an impact on, and it pays better. And that's unfortunately been the reputation for a very long time. And that actually goes to profits right there. It is incredibly expensive to constantly be headhunting and replace people. And especially after Warhammer 3 ended, I mean, how many people jumped ship? And all of those had to spend thousands and thousands of dollars to replace each one of those positions, because of, I can only assume, mismanagement inside the company. People didn't feel listened to. There's no profit sharing. Hey, this game didn't turn out like we wanted. And people left. Whatever the reason was, people left. And that cost them a lot of money.
Without naming names, you can see a bunch of ex-CA developers from previous months, years, and so on. When they leave, they say, oh, I left because so-and-so was a jackass, and stuff like that, right? Yep. Not naming names, but unfortunately, that's the reality. It does look like the happy, friendly company that they try to present themselves at sometimes does have a few bad eggs that ruins it from the inside.
I mean, that's part of it. I mean, it's a company at the end of the day. This is a company and publicly traded. And well, it's not publicly traded. Sega Sammy is. I mean, they're a subdivision of the thing that's publicly traded. I mean, this came down from the top. I'm sure Creative Assembly wasn't like, oh, yes, we need to make cuts and hurt all of our employees. No, no, this is something that Sega came in and said.
Yeah, so some guy made a decision, some guy that isn't like aware of it. Like, I don't know. I honestly don't think that Hyenas would have done well on release because it was looking like it was going to become free to play.
I mean, I think you can make the same argument about Pharaoh at the same time. I mean, I hate to say that. You know, it looks like that it's not going to make its money back, you know, assuming a development cost of what? $40-50 million, something like that, probably, for something this big. I mean, the entirety of CA Sophia working on it since Troyes, or at least a year. I mean, 100 employees. I mean, you know, several $1 million. And, you know, it's number like 100 on Steam wishlist. What's it at now? Like, it's Steam favorites and sales list. It never even cracked top 100. It's just, there's no hype. There's no buzz. There's no nothing. And
and I think that was like, unfortunately, though, the Pharaoh issue, I think, was hurt more because of the Warhammer situation. So it's all been cascading a little bit. Though I do think that the Hyena situation wasn't really hurt by Warhammer because, like, there might have been a little bit.
It brought its own pain.
Like, there might have been a little bit of an overlap, but the Hyena situation is like, look, not being funny, but it just doesn't appeal to me. It's payday in space. That's it, right?
Oh, with some extremely invasive merchandising. Like, you're trying to, like, pick up Sega merch. I read one view, I think it was by Mandalore. He said, like, the most cynical game he has ever played in his life.
And interestingly enough, someone else, ex-EA developer from a while ago, posted on Twitter saying that originally it was supposed to be dark and gritty and stuff. Like, so it was a completely different game originally when it was pitched.
Well, that's what 6 years of development will do. 6 years development and multiple creative directors and new CEO coming on, and who knows who put their finger on it and said, it's going to be this now. But
and more importantly, people have come onto the project that don't play games. You get people who don't understand the fan base that the company's built under and so on. It happens, right? This is why you get loads and loads of garbage releases by different companies, not just EA, but like loads of companies. They get this guy who's from EA. It's like, oh yeah, cool. This guy is basically just there to make money. He's not there to make sure that the game is good, to actually make the money.
Yeah. I mean, it's different expectations. You know, I know that a lot of people have been hired on from Paradox to try and bring into Creative Assembly because they want more of a Paradox feel for a couple things. I've seen that in a couple places, and it doesn't always mesh. You know, I mean...
Wait, CA is hiring ex-Paradox people?
A couple times they have, yeah.
Yeah, well, that explains the DLC practices.
Oh, gosh.
I like Paradox games. I don't like their practices. Like, I love Crusader Kings 3, but everything is a DLC, you know? At least they add in a lot of free content. And here they do really well with Stellaris, which, by the way, Custodian team.
Well, I mean, to that, I mean, that's how they pay for the Custodian team. I mean, is that DLC practice how they continue to make new things moving forward? I mean, even Paradox, though, just announced that they have dropped support for, like, most of their titles, right?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that came out last week. They're like, oh, yeah, you know, we looked through our catalog and, like, Imperator, you know, is not going to get any further support. You know, all these other things, like, there's no money there. I mean, you make the joke that it's like, hey, you know, this is a horrible DLC practice, but if it gives a Custodian team for the main games they want.
Yeah, like, I don't fault that because, like, they've done really well with Stellaris, not my type of game. However, like, CK3 gets decent amount of DLCs and free content alongside it, sometimes by itself. Like, I think it's what I didn't like is when they started increasing the prices of DLCs that were already released for like a year or two. They went back and went, oh no, we're increasing those prices.
The worth of your back catalog, it starts to rub people the wrong way.
Yeah.
You know, and that's, I've heard that explained as a cost of inflation, et cetera, et cetera. It's like, oh, well, you know, that game cost $15 when it came out. Really, it should be $20 now, adjusted for inflation. And there's a lot of that happening right now because I think everybody's really hit right now. I mean, everyone's starting to feel it. It's not official yet. There's no official, we're in a rough spot, but all the companies are battening down the hatches for a reason.
Well, didn't that guy from Capcom recently come out with an interview saying, games should be more expensive? It's like, no, it's like people don't mind paying more money as long as the game is good.
Yeah, well, I think the thing is they're getting ready to raise theirs to $70 instead of 60. He's just saying that games are underpriced, and there's been a real seismic shift in how games are sold and made in the last 15 years. I mean, used to be pretty much it was the console that was really cheap, and then you would spell the games really expensively, right? That's why games have still been $60 this whole time. The consoles were cheap as I think Nintendo 64 was $99, dirt cheap. Right. And then they would sell the games and make up the profit with first party titles. And then that sort of changed where now the console's like $450, $500, for a console now. And the games have remained the same because people are paying so much on the front end, they don't want to pay it later. And, it's like saying, oh, well, games are too cheap. It's like, well, man, the entire hobby's getting pretty pricey, actually. And, when most of your fan base is between the age of 16 and 28, you got a lot of people eating on ramen and then buying games with what little extra cash they have. You only have so much liquid income to kind of tap into there.
Yeah. I don't know, man. With everything going on, it's absolutely disheartening. And I'm kind of worried about what the hell's going on with CA, because it's not just going to be people from Hyenas being cut. It's likely going to be other studios too. Maybe even the ones that are close to home for us.
We'll assume, since Relic Entertainment took 50%, they cut 50%. They'll probably do the same thing at Sega or at CA. I don't know why they wouldn't. At least a third. And that's
still a lot of people.
That's a hell of a lot of people. That's the point. Is that is a seismic reduction in a company and completely disrupts every chain of command, every department. Everyone feels it, and the morale loss on that. Like, nobody wants to join that company. Nobody trusts the company anymore. And there's a general feeling of just discontent. And you're going to see it in whatever comes out next. Whatever the next thing they make is, unless they get bought out by somebody else, that can start footing those bills, that's make or break. And are they going to have the support they need to make it happen? Or are they still going to be reeling from this? Assume there's another major historical, like, whatever coming up, right? The custodian, the existing Warhammer DLC team is like 10 people, so they're probably not going to go. They're pretty busy. They're making DLC up until forever, so we can say they're still there. But what gets cut? Do they cut both the historicals to get to the next major Warhammer title or something? Is it really a case of like really hard arithmetic where it's like, actually these little small ones that don't make as much money aren't worth it to us in the long run, and yeah,
that's I am kind of worried. Whatever the next game is, like we've all heard the rumors, Empire 2, sometimes maybe Medieval 3.
I've heard a couple old world rumors, like an old world DLC expansion thing, but I can imagine that got axed.
They're going to try and trim the fat as much as they can right now.
Yeah. You saw a lot of stuff in the last year hiring for Unreal, like a whole new engine they were hiring for to train people in. Theoretically, it was going to be some sort of RPG title, that they were making, very much like Viking Battle of Asgard back in the day, but possibly Warhammer, possibly not. Who knows? Because
I heard two things.
Yeah, go ahead.
I heard there was an RPG, and I heard that there was a then Unreal game, like two separate entities.
Oh, those weren't the same thing?
Yeah.
Well, that's two projects cut right there.
Yeah.
It's just, geez, man. Yeah, like I said, that this is one of those that if you're putting out a public statement saying, yeah, cuts may be coming, cuts are coming. And as you said, you've already seen people post stuff. It's just a question of how bad was it?
I'm worried. I am honestly worried because like there's devs posting. There was some devs saying that there was like 100 of them at a bar together and stuff. I was like, Jesus Christ, there's 100 could have already lost their jobs, because this is unfortunately a really disgusting nature of the business where they'll axe quickly and they always find out in bulk because they all get like the email at the same time. It's not someone being called into an office going, hey, we're going to let you go.
Typically it's an all-hands meeting. They call everyone to a space and then try and do it all at once. But with that many employees, I don't think they rented an auditorium or something. I'm sure it was probably an email.
Yeah.
And as you said, it's the nature of it. People will axe that huge number of employees with the intention maybe they'll hire them back later, but there's no work now. So,
yeah, I felt I remember when cuts happened for Blizzard a while back. I think it was the European offices. They basically just emailed a bunch of people on the go and was like, "Yep, get out." It's like,
Security will be around to escort you out in an hour. Meet them at the front.
It is horrible, man, because again, we, like, not only as content creators but as fans, we are very closely attached to this series. We're attached to this company essentially, right? Because we deal with their content, we deal with their work.
I mean, it's been wild to see it grow from this, like, tiny 50, 60 man studio to the behemoth that it is now. And, just like Blizzard, it's like, I don't think I like the look of it is now. My favorite company was Lionhead Studios, another UK-based studio. I adored their games, absolutely loved them, and eventually just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. It got bought out by Microsoft as well to pay for future projects, and it just couldn't coalesce back together to make games anymore. It was just too scattered. It was being pulled in too many directions, and eventually they folded it. And that sucks so hard to see something you love like that. It's made by passionate people just get thrown away in the course of chasing more profit, I mean, I get it. Games are supposed to make money. At the end of the day, you make a game, one, because you love doing it, but two, you got to feed yourself. I mean, people can make passion projects. Like, I was reading about the mod for Tamriel Reloaded for Morrowind, which now have been in production for 20 years. I mean, that's the thing is, like, the mods can do that, just putter away forever, but it may never actually release. It's just, I don't think there's a correct answer. I think that thankfully, things like the Steam store and the Epic store have drastically altered the market. Studios can release directly to the consumer now. And there was a statement from the head of Xbox about a week ago saying that the entire AAA studio system is in danger because it's based on these tent poles every time. And, and you got to keep reiterating the same game over and over. I mean, how many times, realistically, what's the difference between Warhammer 3 and Rome 2 mechanics wise? Right? Same building system, same province system, battles roughly work the same. They've added magic and some other things, but it's the same thing.
Yeah. But that's something that people actually want with certain things, right? Because like if the perfect example would be Warcraft. Look at Warcraft 1, 2, and 3, right? RTS games which just got a little bit better and better as time progressed.
I would say those got significantly better over time, but
they did, but it's still the same core, right?
Same core.
You build up
the core game loop didn't change. I get you,
yeah. And that's what people wanted from Total War. Like even when we look at like the idea of a Medieval 3, I want the core of Medieval 2 with newer graphics, a lot more improvements, obviously. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, I want a medieval fighter. I don't want the next like big thing. It doesn't have to be a AAA game. What it has to be is just a good fucking game. There's loads of games which aren't like massive and they're good, right?
Well, I mean, it becomes what's the selling point then? I mean, if you're the CEO making that, he's like, okay, well, what's the flashy thing that gets in new players? How does this expand our base besides what's already there? And that's how you wind up with decisions like Hyenas, where it's like, well, let's do something to make it appeal more to these other audiences. And I think it's just, it's tough. Like, one of my favorite things about Rome 2 was that it continued to get DLC years and years and years after it released. And only to find out later that apparently a lot of it had nothing to do with continued support of Rome 2. It was just they had recently acquired CA Sophia and were training them on the engine. So it's like, two birds, one stone. There you go. It's like the continued support in DLC was my favorite part of that. The idea that I'm not spending $60 every time. I'm spending $20 and I get a new experience in the same thing. It's a new flavor of an ice cream I already like. Or that's a bad example. It's still ice cream. It's just a new flavor, right? It's like, the brand. I don't need a whole new game every time.
Yeah. I mean, it's actually going to the Rome thing. How were those DLCs, the ones that Sophia made? Because I completely, after the shit show of Rome,
Rise of the Republic was them. Empire Divided was them. All the later DLC that came out like after Attila.
And were they good?
I enjoyed them. I mean, I think they were all 7 or 8s, about like most Total War games. Everyone said, hey, this is actually pretty good stuff. They're pushing some boundaries on this. Everyone was pretty excited when CA Sophia was handed their own games. And I think you still see that today. I mean, they're just a passionate small studio that seems to be pretty agile, which again goes back to the fact that 80 people can do a heck of a lot more than 900 can somehow.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I've always, like, you and I are people who have always sung CA Sophia's praise because they are a really good fucking studio.
Gosh,
I do wonder
if they're going to cut them. right?
They shouldn't. They'd be fucking stupid if they did.
No, I mean, seriously, think about it. Okay, I mean, think about it from a merciless SOB standpoint. Troy had to be sold off to Epic Store to make a profit. Pharaoh didn't get the bailout. If you're cutting, why not just cut that entire wing, right? Is there anything that they are offering that the main studio couldn't offer?
Well, considering that the main studio is having to take a lot of mechanics directly from the titles from,
and I've heard that
Sophia,
as well. That one reason they're willing to take the losses on Troy and Pharaoh is that they're basically developing mechanics that can be used elsewhere. So any of the work then can be shunted off. Yeah. But I don't know, man. It just sucks so hard.
They're a good team.
I'm gonna go cry in the shower for a little bit, I think, because this is a shit day for everybody.
Yeah.
Have you seen anything else on Twitter as far as people announcing? Like,
I've been seeing people announcing like they've lost their job, they're looking for staff, and it sucks, man. Like, I don't know how the practice is for the UK because surprise, surprise, I don't know why a lot of people seem to think that, but I'm not in the UK. We have different laws. Yeah, I think it's that. Yeah, but like we got different laws, we got everything different. But like, I'm hoping there's at least a decent size severance package.
I mean, they're working on severance. Typically, severance is 1 or 2 months, but I mean, what's that coming up into the winter? I mean, people are spending money right now, but their budgets for the year are already blown. I mean, and the projects aren't starting up now. I mean, there's also the argument, oh, well, a lot of people can band together and start their own studio. Well, I mean, yeah, they could and not see profit for 2 years. So unless they get an outside investor during a downturn time, they're stuck. And it's just, it sucks so hard.
Yeah. I don't
know. I'm gonna reach out to people, see, like you did. What can I do for you, ma'am?
Yeah.
Hopefully it works out. But all right. Thanks for chatting. This sucks to talk about. Honestly, it's something that we all suspected would be coming eventually. That they would hit that eventual threshold. I just didn't expect it to be this soon. It felt like, oh well, maybe they can turn it around. They just need to do this, that, or the other. And they didn't. And now we're here.
See you, everyone.
On that happy note.
Oh. It's disgusting. Oh, I hate it so much.
I know, man. This sucks. I want to thank the Great Book of Grudges for joining me today. You can check out his channel on YouTube because it's tough to talk about this stuff, and it's nice to know other people around to do it. And for anyone at CA affected by these layoffs, we wish you the best in what comes next and hope you find only successes in the future. Thank you for watching, and we'll continue to post more stories about the layoffs at CA and the fallout from the cancellation of Hyenas as it develops.